So we're going to start off with a quote. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. That's a quote by Nelson Mandela, and it is relating to the topic of discussion today, which is the virtue of courage. Now, I believe courage may be one of the most universal virtues when it comes to manliness. I think all men aspire to be courageous. And so many of just the movies and the books that have existed in the past years that men have been like, damn, that main character is such a badass. It's because they're employing the virtue of courage. Like Christmas is coming up pretty soon. We're getting there. And, Die Hard, which is a Christmas movie, is going to be watched all across the country again. And I think that one of the reasons it was such a blockbuster hit was because John McClane, the main character, is constantly employing courage to the best of his ability. There are times when, he's faced with a terrible situation and he has to make a call as to what to do. There's that part where, was it Nakatomi, Mr. Nakatomi or whatever? He's like, faced by Hans Gruber and he's trying to get the bank code, and the guy's in, Nakatomi's like, I can't give you the bank code because I don't know it, and he gets his brains blown out. And at that point, John McClane's all eaten up because he's like, I could have done something, but he also recognizes that had he made himself aware in that situation, to the terrorists, that he would have been killed, and then he couldn't have helped the rest of the people in the building. And so he's just constantly throughout the show employing courage. That's why it's so amazing, because when he has to act and he knows the right thing to do, he just does it. He doesn't think twice about it. He just goes for it, and he gives everything as much forethought as he can, but he doesn't overthink things to where he thinks himself out of doing the correct action. And so I'm going to talk all about what courage is next, but it's kind of one of the things that I wanted to relate to you all. I think that's probably why that movie did so amazing, is because he does an amazing job, I think, of embodying the virtue of courage. So why should you want courage? Okay, aside from feeling like a badass, because if you're a courageous man, there's a ton of just tangible reasons why you should be courageous. It is, I don't want to say a luxury. It is necessary to be courageous if you're going to live a happy life, which, I've said before, the point of this podcast is for men to become happy. And if you are living a cowardly life all the time, you will not be happy, because I don't think you're fulfilling your nature. But that's a side note. Courage is a virtue that gets employed in so many areas of your life, whether it is your relationships, with the people you love, whether it is, facing a hard task in front of you, whether it is relationship with coworkers, asking for a raise, any of these things. Courage must be employed if you're going to live a life that allows you to sleep well at night, where you look back and you say, I did the right thing in that circumstance. It's so helpful in that regard. And obviously, being good at having tough conversations with people and being able to ask your boss for a raise, and, being able to not run away from someone that's assailing you and to actually face the problem in front of you, those actually have tangible benefits outside of just feeling content as a man. But I do think that's also important. So I want to talk about two different types of courage. I talk about them in my book, but I believe that the two most prominent types of courage are physical courage and conversational courage. And you can kind of guess what those two things are about, but physical courage is what we think of when we see like action sequences and people aren't cowering or running away. They are just looking at their adversary in the eyes and saying, I'm going to win. I'm going to beat you. And that's super important in war. And actually the kind of the king of the virtues, as far as, the authority on the virtues, who is Aristotle, he says that war is actually the place where courage is the best formed. And there's a reason for that I'll get to later. But, the idea of physical courage is, like I talked about it before, but like if you're walking through a bar with your wife and somebody feels up your wife, like you cannot be a coward in this situation. You have to be willing to take on that other man and say, hey, that's not okay. You're going to apologize right now, or we're going to go outside. because that's the right thing to do. You have to defend your wife's honor, your own honor. There's a lot of stuff going on there, but in instances like that, physical courage is required. But the thing is, in our modern world, physical courage is so rare. It's very rare that you're having physical altercations, but it is important still to have that ability, that ace in your back pocket to pull out when you are faced with an adversary like that. And then the second type of courage I want to talk about is that of conversational courage. And this is very, very prominent in all areas of the world. Whether you're talking with a loved one, you're talking with your spouse, your girlfriend, whoever it is, and you have to have a tough conversation. That's not fun. You don't want to go through it, but you also know that, the grass is a lot greener on the other side of that conversation. So it is worth having. It will give you a more fulfilling and happy life. But it's tough. You don't want to have the conversation, and that could be even, asking for a raise from your boss. I did this once. I was remodeling. I was getting better and better at it, and I could tell I was getting better. I could see that I was getting faster and more proficient in so many different ways. And my boss would tell me that every now and then. He gave me a lot of shit too, but he'd tell me that every now and then. And one day I was like, I feel like my wages should start to reflect that a little bit. But I had to go up and ask him. He wasn't going to just proactively probably come out and say, hey, I think you're doing a lot better. I'm going to pay you more, because it's just not in his mind. It's not he wasn't thinking about it. He had a lot of stuff going on with his life. He probably wasn't, dwelling on the fact that I thought I needed more money. So one day I just kind of got up the gumption. I was like, okay, I got to go talk to him. And I thought it was going to be terrible. I thought it was going to be awful. I was going to go there, and there's going to be a back and forth and a haggle. But I just went there, and I talked to him man to man, and I said, hey, you've been saying that you've seen progress in the quality of my work and how fast I'm doing it. I have noticed it. I feel like I'm doing better, and I think my pay should reflect that. And he was like, oh, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yep, I'll get that changed for you. Let's get you a raise. And life was so much better after that conversation. But it sucked. I had to get the gumption, the courage to go up and actually have that conversation. Or if there's something in your relationship with anybody that you love that is bothering you big time, you should talk about it. Don't just leave it under the rug. Talk about it. And that's where courage comes into play. So I hope that I have convinced you enough that courage is vital to living a wholesome and happy life. So I want to talk about the three different types of men in regard to courage so that we can all kind of have a gauge on where we're at. I am certainly not perfectly courageous. I would say that hopefully I tend towards being the courageous man and not the coward or the rash man. But I want to talk about all three in regards to the virtue of courage, because that's what Aristotle does. So he talks about in regards to every virtue, three different types of men, and two of them are the extremes, and one of them is the perfection of the virtue. So in this case, obviously, we're talking about courage, so the perfection of the virtue would be the courageous man. The other two people that Aristotle brings to mind in regards to courage is the rash man and the coward. Now, I want to go in depth a little bit with those people because I once again, I think it's super helpful to have that, template to say, where do I fit in this puzzle? Am I more of the rash man? Am I more of the coward? Or am I actually tending more towards being the courageous man? So let's start with the rash man. The rash man is basically the Hulk. He runs in, he doesn't think about, he doesn't take time to think about the actual problem confronting him. He just rushes in and starts smashing shit. Like, he just basically acts without thinking. And that's not good. You need to have some presence of mind in the situation, and that's what the courageous man has. But the rash man just rushes in, and he just does things. Now, this is definitely more admirable than the coward, certainly, like 100%. And we'll figure out why here in a second. But the rash man, he acts without thinking. He just goes in and does shit. And a lot of times it causes way more problems than the situation actually calls for. Way more problems that just didn't have to happen. So let's go to the opposite extreme of the spectrum when it comes to courage, and that is the coward. So the rash man rushes in and does stuff, does shit just like without thinking. The coward thinks so much, and then he thinks himself out of the situation. And he backs away, and he runs, and he tucks tail, and he gets out of there. Now, every culture, from Kingdom Come, has always despised the coward. Because it's a deplorable state to be in. You don't want to be the guy that, when you're on the front line with all your comrades, everybody's in the front line, and you all have made up a plan to say, hey, we're advancing this time, or we're going to hold our shots till this time, or, whatever that plan is, and then you just tuck tail and run. You get out of there, and you save your own skin while your men are dying back there. It's a cowardly thing to do. And you don't want to be the kind of guy that stabs your friend in the back just so you can get out of a rough conversation or a tough situation. You don't want to be that guy, and that's what the coward is. You could think of him kind of as like Loki from the Avengers, right? So I've already talked about the Hulk. Why not talk about Loki? But he kind of always is conniving and lying and being distrustful and stabbing people in the back, quite literally. But stabbing people in the back to get his own way or to get out of tough situations, or he's just fleeing, running away. And that's what the coward does. He doesn't look his adversary or his opponent in the face. He just turns away from him and runs. And that's not good either. One of the things, I need to get back into doing this, but, when I was in high school, me and my cousin started boxing each other. And for me, that was such a confidence builder, and I wasn't good at it, and he's actually trained a lot now. He's really good. But we used to box together, and we didn't really know what we were doing. But what it forced us to do, when you're in that physical altercation with someone, you have to be thinking about what you're doing, and then you have to act. Because if you don't act, whether that action is putting your hands up on your head so you don't get absolutely just walloped on, or just, covering yourself up in areas where you don't want to be hit, or actually, pushing through and making the punch or jabbing or whatever you're doing. And once again, I'm by no means great at this, but it was very helpful for me because it's one of those situations where you have to act. You have no choice, because if you don't act, you get the shit beat out of you. That's how it works. And so that was one of the ways that, for me, that was very helpful, was to kind of, tear away from that cowardice, is to just get into situations like that. But that's what the coward is. He tucks tail and runs. The fear overtakes his senses, and he cannot think. He cannot act because he just focuses on, I'm so afraid of that thing. I can't handle it. I can't deal with it. I'm out of here. That's what he says. And you don't want to be that guy, because there are truly important parts of your life that require the ability to say, hey, okay, this is a situation at hand. We've got to deal with it. Let's act right now, right? I mean, it's not only very valuable for your own self-esteem as a man, but it's super valuable to the people around you. I mean, damn, if people didn't know how to react when someone had a heart attack, I mean, how many more dead people would we have? Probably quite a few, but as it stands, a lot of the time, there's a man with enough courage to say, hey, everybody calm down, check his pulse. If he doesn't have his pulse, let's give him CPR, keep him alive as much as we can. We're going to call an ambulance, get him there as fast as possible, and then we'll let the EMTs do their job. But having that presence of mind when it seems like the whole world's falling apart around you is very difficult. And that's where the virtue of courage comes into play. It's a pretty freaking awesome thing, if you think about it. So let's talk about the courageous man a little bit more. We've talked about Loki and the Hulk as the kind of the two extremes of courage. But I talked earlier about John McClane from Die Hard and why he's such a great embodiment of that virtue of courage. And it's because the only times that he, quote unquote, retreats is so that he can gain a better advantage. And that's what, that's the one time that a courageous man can run away from something. He never runs away for the sake of running away. He runs away to gain an advantage on his opponent. And so, there's a great scene in the movie where Mr. Nakatomi, I believe is his name, because it's Nakatomi Tower. Yeah, so he's being questioned, and Hans Gruber is saying, we need the code to your vault so we can get your bank bonds. And Nakatomi's like, I can't give them to you because I don't know them. And Hans Gruber counts down 3, 2, 1, and then blows his brains out. And this whole time, John McClane he's watching, right? He's looking at him, and he's hiding under a table because the terrorists don't know that he's there, right? And you can just tell the acting's so great. But he's like, I want to act. I should do something. I should do something. But if I do anything right now, they're gonna find me and shoot me. And then everyone else in this building, I can't help them. They're done for. So he had to make a really difficult call in the sense that he didn't act there only because he knew that down the road, the only chance he had of helping the people in the building was to remain undiscovered. And there's so many parts in that movie where he's up on the farthest floor, and he's trying to deliberate about what to do, and he's like beat himself up because there's so many terrible situations that he's put into. But when push comes to shove, he acts. He does the right thing, and that's why he's such a great, paramount character when it comes to the virtue of courage. Yeah, so we've talked about kind of, what it is and why you should want it. Now let's talk real fast about how you get it. Now, Aristotle, in the book, The Nicomachean Ethics, he says that courage, like all virtue, is done by doing the thing repeatedly and then actually having the situations to do the thing in. So, unfortunately, in this world we live in, there's not a ton of situations that men are put into on a daily basis where like extreme courage is needed. That's just it's a lesser and lesser thing. So you have to manufacture situations where you are uncomfortable, where you don't feel like you've got everything under control, where there are a lot of outside influences on you that you have to handle. And I mean, that could be a lot of things. Like maybe you've never asked a girl out on a date. Go do it. Go ask a girl out on a date. It's just a date. It's just a date. She could say no. That's the worst thing that could happen. But go ask a girl on a date if you haven't done that. That requires courage. Like, man, my now fiance, I'm getting married to in January. I'm so glad that I had the courage to do this. But like, it was very difficult. Like asking her on a date. And I asked other girls on a date, so I guess I'd had some experience in that realm. But I really liked her. I thought she was awesome. And I knew it would be worth it to just see if she would go on a date with me, and then we'll see where things go from there. And so I, once again, built up the gumption and built up the courage, and I asked her on a date. And thank God I did, because things turned out, pretty amazing. We're getting married, and that's super exciting. But there's so many great outcomes that can come from just being courageous. So anyways, that's one example. It's like, okay, if you haven't asked a girl on a date, ask a girl on a date. Go talk to a stranger. That's one that I'll tell you, gentlemen, I am not the best at doing this. Like, for instance, if I can order pizza online and then go pick it up, I will do that as opposed to calling people. But I need to work on just like maybe calling people, because that's something that I'm not afraid of, but it makes me a little uncomfortable. You have to interact with a person, and you have to kind of get a point across to a random stranger on the phone. Like, it's not really that big a deal. I know that. But if I can avoid it, I do. And so one of the things I can do personally, at least, to build courage is to say, hey, actually, I'm not going to use the app. I'm not going to get online and order the pizza. I'm going to call somebody up. I'm going to say, hey, listen, I need, a 2-topping pizza. I need chicken and red peppers. That's kind of a weird pizza, but you get the point. I need to put myself in the situation. Or another example I talked about earlier, ask your boss for a raise. If you think that your work is worthy of that, if you think you are worth that, go ask your boss for a raise. Just, I guess, in areas where you can build up this virtue of courage, where you can put yourself in a position to employ courage in your life, go do it. Don't shy away from it. Talk to strangers. Go do something new. Go do an activity you've never done before where you're going to look like a dumbass because you've never done it. But you have to actually face the thing in front of you. Maybe you've gone, you want to go bouldering. You want to go climb some rocks. But it's kind of daunting. You've never really done it before. You're going to be a complete noob, and you're kind of worried about what people might think of you for doing it, because you're going to look like an amateur, because that's what you are. Go do it. Go do it. It can first off really build your self-esteem, because one day you'll look up and you'll say, "Oh, I actually can do that. I am capable of that." It's not, something that's so daunting I can't overcome it. And by building up these small little levels of courage, right? Of just facing new things, new threats, new opponents, Like another idea is go box somebody. I was talking about that before, but I used to box my cousin. You have to act. But go do things like that because it will build up these small little levels of courage. And then one day when something very catastrophic happens, like someone having a heart attack, like somebody, just berating a woman in a grocery store, you have the balls to just walk up and say, "Hey, no, I'm not going to allow it to happen." Or you'll be the guy that has a presence of mind to say, "Damn, somebody's having a heart attack. We got to act. We got to get people here fast. Somebody call 911." Like, you're that guy. Because it's helpful to other people, but it's also helpful to your own self-esteem and your own confidence in yourself in every situation. So that's really why I think courage is necessary for men. That's how you develop it. It's by small little things building up to where one day when a big situation where courage is required comes about, you say, "I'm ready. Let's do it." So become a courageous man. Work on it. I'm working on it. I've got a lot of room to grow. But it's something that I believe deep down inside is just completely necessary if you're going to live a happy and a wholesome life where you can sleep well at night. That's all for this section. I hope you enjoy.